Hi everyone, it's Kathy for Whimsy Stamps. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'll be sharing how I created this card here with the orange polka dot background. The first card, I'll go over how I did that at the end of this video. I'll be using the new super cute Spirited Sentiment stamp set that was just released today. And I'll also be using the polka dot stencil, also from Whimsy Stamps. I started out by using some painter's tape just to hold the stencil in place on my cardstock. And the cardstock that I'm using is Neenah Classic Crest cardstock. Next, I grabbed my Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo and I gave it a good stir, and then I spread it up at the top of the stencil and used my Score Pal to drag that gel all the way down the front of the cardstock. I did remove the stencil and I have a bunch of polka dots on my piece of cardstock, and I did notice that the gel, some of the dots had some air bubbles, so I just used a pokey tool to pop those bubbles, and then I set that panel off to the side to dry. I did let that dry overnight because it is the Transfer Gel Duo. And after I was done with my stencil and all of my tools, I did just drop those into a little dish that I had with warm soapy water. It's important to do that so that the gel doesn't stick to your tools, because once it dries, it's pretty hard to remove it. And of course, I forgot to turn on my camera when I went to add the Electro Pop Neon Enamel. Really cool enamel sheets from ThermoWeb. I used Orange Glow. It's really very simple to do. You use it similar to foil. You just put it on top of your background, and then with the Transfer Gel Duo, you can either run that through your die cutting machine or you can run it through a laminator. This was kind of an experiment. I wasn't sure if the enamel would resist the ink. I know that foil does, so I did a little test on the corner to make sure that it would resist, and yay, it did. Anyway, I used a makeup brush to do that ink blending. And after I was done, I used a clean paper towel just to buff off the enamel to make them pop up and be neon again. Next, I arranged the 3 little ghosties onto an acrylic block, and I just stamped them a number of times. I don't even know how many. And then I ran those through my Brother Scan and Cut to cut the little ghosties out for me. I die cut the card panel using a Wonky stitched rectangle die. Then I arranged all the ghosts on the front, and once I was happy with their placement, I put a piece of press and seal on top of them, and then I carefully lifted them up and I put black foam squares on the back side of each of them. And once I had all of the release paper removed, I flipped the piece of press and seal back on top of my card panel and pressed those ghosties into place. Then I just pulled back the press and seal, and all of them are right where they should be. I adhered that to a piece of orange cardstock that's cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I put a bunch of adhesive on the back of that, and then I remembered that I should probably stamp the inside of my card first. So I put my card base, which is a top folding A2 size note card, into my MISTI and stamped my sentiment with a VersaFine Onyx black ink. Then I adhered the panel to the front of the card, and I thought I was done, but then I thought, I could probably use a sentiment on the front. So I stamped that onto a piece of scrap orange cardstock and trimmed it down to where it would fit. And I did have to remove a couple of the little ghosts to get my sentiment on the front of the card, but I was able to get them back into place. I did have to remove some of the foam squares so that they would be flush with the sentiment, because I did pop the sentiment up with foam squares. And that's it. That finishes up my first card. Now for the second card, I had a bunch of little ghosties left over. So I grabbed a piece of patterned paper from the new Haunted paper pack, and I cut it down and arranged the little ghost. I just adhered them flat onto that panel there, and I trimmed it to about 3 1/4 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall. Then I adhered that to another piece of patterned paper from the Licorice pack, and that patterned paper is trimmed down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I just adhered that to the front of my note card, which is an A2 size top folding note card. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.